You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. I am back again with another haircut tutorial for you guys. Today we are doing a very low skin taper just on the sides. My client wants to keep their hair very long today. They're trying to grow it out and style it a little bit differently. So we're going to keep it a low taper, very light trim all around, and we're going to add in a lot of texture and try to keep some of the length. So let's get started. We are going to first off, as you saw me earlier, comb the hair out, make sure everything is nice and combed. We part the hair over to the opposite side of where we're going to cut just to get some of that length out of the way. And we are going to throw our number 2 guard on our clipper, lever all the way open, and we are just very lightly, as you can see, I'm not cutting in too deep. We're very lightly just removing some weight out of the way so we can get down to that low taper because we are going to have to fade it. We're not just going to go ahead and just start the low taper. I always start with removing the bulk first. That way it makes it a lot easier to see the area that you're going to cut and to start fading. Now, when a client usually asks for a really low taper, my recommendation, especially when their hair is long, is to start as low as possible. You want to start where the hair is still kind of dark, but as low as possible into that sideburn that you can, because you're going to have to fade it up, right? So you want to go ahead and create that first line, not too hard so you don't have to do too much work in blending wise. And then after you create that first line, we remove a little bit of weight with that 1.5 guard, lever open. Then we take that guard off. As you can see, we can see the area we're going to work with now. We're not going to go too much higher than that. And then we take our guard off. We have our lever halfway open. We using most of the corner, as you can tell. Make sure you pay attention to how I'm holding the clipper. I'm using mostly the corner. And then after we go up just just a little bit, just a tad, not too much, we're gonna go ahead and throw our half guard on. Take our half guard, close it all the way, using just that corner, keep blending up, and we're using just basically the corners of that clipper through this whole taper right here. And then at the end, we're gonna throw a little bit of shears on there. We take our half guard off, go back down onto the lever halfway open just to blend anything in between that 0 and half guard. Now we have our 1.5 guard on. Now when you're blending and their hair is long, make sure to not go too deep. As you can see, I'm very lightly just like coming up and out. I'm not going in. I'm just removing some of the weight, some of the bulk, but still making sure there's a nice consistent blend. Now we have our number 1 guard on, lever all the way open using just that corner, and we're going to go ahead and just taper that in just a little bit. Don't forget to play with that lever if you need to. Instead of removing a bunch of guards, you can always play around with that lever to make that blend nice and clean. We're going to throw our half guard back on our clipper, lever closed. We're going to keep that taper nice and low. As you can see, we're just blending a little bit more into the skin. Make sure you're looking in the mirror too, because that really helps a lot when just trying to know if you're blending enough. We got that number 2 guard back on our clipper using just the corner very lightly, just trimming a little bit of that weight that's sitting there. We want it to blend in when it flows down, but we just don't want to take too much length off. To make sure we can see this area before we cut it, we're going to take these shears and just trim the excess hair that's hanging over, and then we'll come back around with our trimmer to make it nice and sharp. Sometimes you do need to line up the area. Once you think you've done the most you can do with the taper, line up the area, then check it back again in the mirror to make sure that you've done all you can with that taper. Sometimes there might be areas you need to work on a little bit more, but when you look in the mirror after lining up that area that you were just working on, sometimes you can get a clearer vision of if you need to do more or if the taper is perfect. Other than that temple area where we tapered, we're not going to make any other lines too sharp. We're just cleaning up any excess hair that's hanging over. Like I said, we're keeping the hair pretty much long all around, and we're going to take just a nice little trim off. But as you can see, that taper there is nice and blended pretty smooth, and we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Just repeat all the exact same steps on the opposite side. Part over, low taper, start everything low. Try to keep that blend nice and consistent, and make sure to check that mirror just for any help. Once you're done, we're going to go ahead and move on to a nice trim all around or just around the sides and back. And then we are going to put the finishing touches on. Like I said in the video earlier, we are not going to make anything too sharp and too crispy and not going to take off too much length. Here we're just cutting around the edges, making sure they're nice and clean, and then we're going to give it a light trim. When the taper is done and the edges are clean, we move to the top. So we go ahead and spray it down with our water bottle first, and then we're going to go ahead and comb everything out. Make sure to pull out at a 90-degree angle. We're going to do just a light trim. Make sure it's not so bulky and heavy. We're going to just go ahead and just take off, about a quarter to a half inch just off the back. She doesn't like it because it's just a little too heavy back there. So just a light trim, and then I don't think we're taking much off the top at all. A little bit off the bangs maybe, and then we are going to style it at the end. Make sure before styling to show your customer the mirror just to make sure everything is at their satisfaction with the lengthwise, so you don't have to go back and do it over again. Once everything is good, as you can see, we're going to throw a little bit of product in there to style it. She likes to style it forward and up, so we're going to go ahead and style it like that for her. And you just want to make sure to get like a last good look into the mirror, make sure everything is sitting where it's supposed to be. Make sure the hair is dry before you put the product in, just so it holds a little bit stronger, because when the hair is really long like that, it might be a little bit harder to hold. Add a touch of hairspray just to make sure everything stays in place.
Do you or do you not feel bonita?
I feel bonita.
Wonderful, because you look bonita.